The Grumman XF5F skyrocket. Naval hot rod. In 1935, the U.S. Navy had a bit of a crisis. They were just about to bring into service their newest carrier fighter, the Grumman F2F, and were already flying the prototype of the next one, the F3F, which would remedy issues with the -2F and offer improved performance. But though both aircraft were solid examples of their type, that type was biplanes, and the writing appeared to be firmly on the wall as to where fighter aircraft designs were headed. And that was in the monoplane. So in 1935, the U.S. Navy also issued a request for a new fighter of that type as well. And this quickly led to the development and adoption of the Brewster Buffalo and the Grumman F4F Wildcat in the next few years. But while this was going on, the Navy had another concern. One I suspect was created, in fact, by the actions of their sister service. In 1934, the United States Army Air Corps, USAAC, issued a specification for a large, long-range multi-engine bomber that could operate at high altitude and carry, for the day, a heavy bomb load that it should be able to drop with great precision. And in 1935, an aircraft flew that aimed to meet this requirement. Boeing's Model 299, which went on to become the famed B-17 Flying Fortress. This was, by the standards of the time, a huge aircraft with unapparalled firepower and potential capability. But think about it from the U.S. Navy's point of view. If their sister service could get hold of such a formidable aircraft, so potentially could the United States' rivals. And this was a real issue. The Navy's fighter were biplanes armed with 2 machine guns. In performance terms, they would struggle to catch an aircraft like the proposed B-17. And even if they did, they might not even be able to shoot it down. So, the Navy started to think about what sort of aircraft might be needed to counter such a threat. This process got a real boost in 1938 when the USAAC, in a blatant publicity stunt, intercepted an Italian ocean liner more than 600 miles out at sea and photographed it, using the event to trumpet that they could do a better job of defending the coast of the continental United States than the Navy. Putting aside the row that ensued from a tactical point of view, the U.S. Navy realized that the problem was serious. This was in the period before radar was fitted on ships, and so locating an enemy air attack was done by eye. The U.S. Navy realized that this raised a whole new issue. They were now facing the possibility of having to deal with big, fast, powerful, high-flying aircraft that the first warning of an attack might be when the lookout saw them. Even the new Buffalo and Wildcat didn't have performance, especially in rate of climb, that would allow them to intercept such aircraft before they launched their attack. What the Navy needed was a fast-climbing, heavily armed bomber-killing interceptor. So, they put out a request for such an aircraft. This should be as fast as possible and with as high a rate of climb as could be achieved, along with an armament of 2 20mm cannon and 2 machine guns. Several companies submitted proposals, but most struggled to come up with a viable idea. In 1937, the problem was that the most powerful engines available for service fighters only produced around 1,000 horsepower, and that just wasn't enough to fulfill the requirement. So, Grumman came up with what seems on the face of it the logical solution. If one engine doesn't provide enough power, have 2. Meet the Grumman XF5F skyrocket. Now, I'm sure that you'll see that Grumman's solution was somewhat unconventional. The skyrocket turned out as twin-engine, low-wing monoplane with a twin-fin tail assembly and the undercarriage retracting into the engine nacelles. But most notable was the nose, or lack of one really, with the wing's leading edge protruding at the front of the aircraft. Odd looks aside, the skyrocket did broadly meet the criteria. The aircraft, as initially proposed, was intended to use 2 Pratt and Whitney twin Wasp Junior engines, which produced over 800 horsepower each. But issues with that engine's development meant that the prototype would actually be fitted with Wright 1820s. These were substantially more powerful, producing 1,200 horsepower each, but were heavier and had a larger frontal section. This increased drag and negatively impacted the pilot's view. Neither Grumman nor the U.S. Navy were particularly happy about that factor, but accepted it as a fact as they wanted to see what the aircraft could do. This was the first two-engine carrier fighter the U.S. Navy had properly considered, and so it raised some interest, and an order was placed for a single prototype. Like and follow for a Part 2.